I'm good.
Cool. Do you want to hit us with a little intro, Andre?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Last Year podcast. My name is Andre.
I'm Bennett.
And today we are joined by a special guest.
Special?
Yes.
Very.
Come
on.
I'm Ryu. My name's Ryu. I'm the special guest.
We wanted to sit down with Ryu. We have a ton of different questions for you. We can really talk about anything, really, but Ryu might just be the most interesting person we've had on the podcast, because we had your uncle.
That's
Ouch.
But he's very
ouch. What the heck?
We had your uncle on the podcast, but he fucking sucked.
No, that was a very pleasant podcast, I thought, as well.
Yeah, that was splendid.
He's got that unk wisdom.
Yeah, definitely. Would you like to introduce sort of where you're at in your career right now and what projects you're working on?
Sure, I could. It's not very glamorous at the moment, though, unfortunately. This is something I learned once I had graduated, but film goes into a dead season during the winter. So from October until the spring, so late February, early, it comes after February, March, there's not a whole lot of film work going on. So the last feature film I worked on was back in September. Then after that I haven't had any paid film work. Really.
Okay.
Outside of,
That's so cool, though. What feature film was this?
So it's called Go On. It's it was an indie feature. I believe the budget was $500,000. I don't know for sure. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
Okay.
But it was an indie feature, and we did about 2 weeks up in the Montezuma Mountains at this. It was a Christian camp, but after COVID they had some. Or no, not even COVID, because they're in the mountains. They don't care. But the wildfires that were happening, the Hermit's Peak fires, because it's 30 minutes outside of Las Vegas. So after the Hermit's Peak fires, they were really struggling to have people coming up, but they let us use. Excuse me. They let us use their space and stay there. It was basically like a summer camp. It was the coolest film I've ever been on, but it was basically like a summer camp. We stayed up there for 2 weeks. We all got really close because we kind of did everything together. It's we all ate together in the same place. We all worked together, come home, eat dinner together, go to sleep, wake up, do it again. So it was kind of like a film summer camp.
And it was a few weeks, you said? Or?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks.
Cool.
And this was also my first feature where I was on it for run of show, which means for the whole thing.
Okay.
There's day playing where you come onto a show for 1 to 3 days, just every here or there, and then there's run of show where you're on the movie or show or whatever for the entire duration of it.
Wow. Okay.
So
was that you were really happy that you got to?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was awesome, and I was in the camera department, second AC, under my buddy Seth Babeau, who's one of my heroes. He's
one of the goats.
He's the goat.
Okay.
He's the best. I love Seth.
What exactly were you doing? You were just running, manning the cameras and stuff?
No, so that's what a camera operator does. So the way that the hierarchy in film works, at least for the camera department, is there's the DP, right, which is they're the top of the ladders. They're on the same footing as the director.
Okay.
The DP is the director of photography. So director works with the actors. Director of photography basically decides the entire look of the film. And then sometimes they'll operate cameras if it's a smaller film. But there's DP, and then there's the DIT who does all the coloring for the film. They actually do a lot. And I don't know the full extent of their responsibility, but they're the second highest paid camera department because they do a lot of shit. It's a really stressful job. And then there's the camera operators, who are the ones actually manning the cameras, operating the cameras, using those. The first AC, who is the focus puller. They're the one that pulls focus, keeps the image sharp, and also puts together the camera. They're the ones that build the camera. They go to the prep days to get all this stuff. They basically are the ones that run the camera department. The second AC is the loader, slate loader. They're the guy that puts the thing in front of the camera and goes, take one, whatever, and they clap the little clapper. And they also assist the first AC in all their jobs. They swap out batteries, they help move equipment, they do all that. They're the bitch of the first AC, pretty much. And then beneath that is utility. And utility is like, they have their own things. They work mostly with the DIT, and they also run batteries. It's complicated, but that's the basic hierarchy, as I'm familiar with it.
Wow, cool. And like, how many productions do you think you've been a part of? Like, could you even count?
Yeah, probably on my two hands.
Yeah.
The amount, over my entire career so far, since like freshman year of college, probably not. It's a lot. I could pull up my production resume if you really wanted me to, but I've been on a good amount of productions. As for movies, like feature films, I have only been on 3.
Only 3.
Only 3. And only one of them was run of show. Actually, I don't even know if I'm supposed to say this technically, but
exclusive.
This film that I was on in September was submitted to the Los Angeles Film Awards Film Festival and won Best Narrative. And this wasn't even like the final cut with like the top tier color grading and like soundtrack and all that, and it won Best Narrative. Wow. So
which one was this? What was the name?
This was Go On.
Oh, okay.
And none of us have seen it.
Huh.
They haven't done a crew screening yet.
Oh, wow.
So we actually don't even know really how it
turned out?
Yeah.
Wow.
But on that, I was second AC in loader, and I actually came on after a couple of days. So I technically wasn't run of show because I missed like the first 2 days. But there was a big argument between some people, and some people left. And so they were like, hey, you're going to come on, do second AC and loader. And loader is a job that I forgot to mention. Loader, I was working 17-hour days. This was like...
For real?
Yeah. We were shooting for 12 hours, right? Eat dinner. And then I was basically the one... The loader is a very high responsibility because they are the one person in the camera department where incompetence could destroy the whole film. Because they're the ones offloading all of the footage and making sure it gets backed up to all the drives. They have to stay awake to make sure it all dumps successfully. And then, when you format the card, formatting cards, that's a terrifying thing. So you have to be absolutely sure, yes, all of the footage, the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of footage that's on here has been backed up and saved on 3 different drives. You can format this. And that's... So yeah, I was working like 17-hour days.
That is terrible.
Crazy overtime. It was rough.
Is that legal?
Oh yeah, if they pay you enough.
Wow, that's insane. Like that's just one person's responsibility, but someone has to do it, I guess. But
typically, second AC and loader are if the film has a lot of money, those are 2 different positions, and so the second AC can just do camera, and then as soon as one card is done, they give it to the loader. The loader can immediately start dumping that. And this was like on our worst days, and by worst I mean like the days we shot the most, because we were shooting on 2 cameras, 2 RE Alexa Mini 35s, super nice cameras. Probably cost as much at this house. I'm just kidding. That's not true. But each one we had Cook 2X anamorphic lenses, and each one of those lenses is $20,000 to $40,000 each. So. The RE Alexa, just the camera body itself is like $100,000.
Wow.
But on our so even the cards that we put into it, one of the cameras had 500 gigabyte cards and the other camera had 1 terabyte cards. And so I was offloading upwards of 6 cards, just 6 terabytes of footage to 3 different drives. And that takes a while, So it was because of the fact that I was also second AC, so I had to be on set for the 12 hours while we were running the cameras, and then have to do the job afterwards. But if they're separated, then they can do it separately, and everyone goes to bed on time.
So, and why does somebody have to be watching it? Are they physically watching a screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like if you were, dragging and dropping files, you do it through a nice program that makes sure it does it, and checks and makes sure every single bit of data got over, but it's not something you want to just leave overnight and go to sleep, because if there's an issue, it has to be addressed before the next shooting day, because then you're running behind.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's and again, if it's like once the first card is done, you start doing it, then it's not a big deal. And by the end of it, you're only staying an extra hour or two after everyone else, and you're fine. But it's because of the fact that this was a lower budget film that the two jobs were kind of combined. So,
If you had to choose one of those roles to that you prefer, which one do you think?
Offloader, 100%.
well, that's not the only thing the loader does. The loader basically is the logistics side of the entire camera department. They're the ones that if a piece of equipment breaks or goes wrong, they're the ones that have to call the rental house to say, hey, XYZ, this serial number, this is busted, we need to have a new one. They actually also do all the time cards for everyone in the camera department, and they offload footage. So they're actually, it's a lot more than just like dragging and dropping footage. And honestly, I would rather be second AC.
Okay.
But one of my other first ACs, Bishop Pattinson, he's an interesting guy. He's a very tough cookie, abrasive, but also a very good teacher. Very, very strict guy, but also, I don't know, he's hard to get a read on, ex-military, but really likes golf. I feel like most military guys like golf. But he was basically encouraging me to be a loader and learn how to be a loader, because when I got out of college, the first gig I ever got was like a multi-million-dollar commercial as a second AC. That's pretty much unheard of. Because most people, when you graduate from film school, at least here in New Mexico, it's like they expect you to start off as a PA, all the way at the bottom of the ladder. So to graduate and immediately be thrown into a high-level camera position, I was like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, and this is showing me that UNM has not really taught me anything about how to work professionally in the film industry.
Wow.
So he was strict, but he was patient enough and understanding of the fact that I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. So he set a pretty high standard, which was great. But he was saying, after our first job, he was telling me like, everyone needs a loader, but nobody like wants to hire a loader. So my best piece of advice to you is go buy a laptop. It has to be a Mac, because the film industry runs on Apple, which fucking blows.
Exactly.
Apple sucks. It was like, go get a Mac, go buy a Mac, get shot put, and just beg people to let you on as a loader. Because the better loader you are, the better second AC you are. And so that's what he was. Loader is technically been below second AC on the totem pole, but they're very important. And I was like, oh, but being a loader sucks. It's just paperwork. You don't get to do any of the cool stuff. But he's right.
And like, why don't people like hiring loaders? Like,
I mean, a lot of the time, second AC and loader gets combined into a position.
Okay.
But it's like, it comes down to budget. It's very much so. The film industry is tough in that it's all about who you know, right? And so if there's already, 3 good loaders in town that everyone's bringing onto films, good luck.
Yeah.
You gotta be like, please. And if, I actually wanted to start off as a utility, because oh my God, I'm just like rambling. This is
all great to hear.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Something else that I learned about the film industry, particularly in the camera department, is that it's very political and it's very nepotistic. It's very like, if I were to join the union right now as a second AC, I wouldn't get work. And if I were to get work, everyone else who's been in the industry for years and has no idea who the hell I am, they would fucking hate me for it, because we're all scrambling for the same work. So if some kid who's barely been in the film industry joins the union and starts getting gigs over the people who've been in it for a decade plus, that person is now has a target on their back. The camera department in particular is kind of cutthroat from what I've seen. I mean, maybe this is all kind of fear-mongering from what I've heard from the other people. But as someone who's green and like hearing all this, I'm like, okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Utilities, on the other hand, which is like the very bottom of the camera department ladder, but they still make, fucking 32 to 56 an hour if it's a union rate. They're always needed. So
what do they do?
They mostly work with the DIT, and the DIT, like one of their responsibilities is like setting up Video Village, which is all the monitors and stuff for the director to look at, the scripty who, you know, keeps track of the script to make sure everything's going correctly. Basically, they set up Video Village. That's one of their responsibilities. And the utility helps the DIT more than the camera department. But utility will help the camera department swap out batteries. They'll run cable for DIT. That's about all I can tell you because I haven't really done it. But that's where I wanted to start because I was like, I don't want to get thrown into the politics. And then immediately I started getting second AC gig. And it's like, this is great. I love this. This is awesome. But I want to, you know, I'm down to work my way up, but you guys are throwing me in at the top. It's like, what's going on here?
And you said going in at the top isn't necessarily like good in the film industry because like that thing you were saying about like getting a target on your back basically, or does that have to do more with the union?
That has more to do with the union.
Oh, okay.
The fact that I'm being second AC on these. I'm sorry. Let me turn my phone off because it keeps going off. All my bitches.
Also,
these are all my male friends. Actually,
I just wanted to say real quick, it's so funny because Andre did not tell me like like who was gonna come on the show, and like genuinely, I could not think of a better person.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna try to get Luke Carbonneau on here.
Oh,
and
I
like
didn't think of Luke Carbonneau.
So I was like, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons I reached out to you just because I feel like I have so many interesting questions, especially Ben and I both went to the premiere of Noce Escura, and we haven't even gotten to that yet. But I'm sure.
Which screening did you guys watch? Was it the one in the sub?
It was like the Black Rabbit. It was in the Pope Joy. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did something go wrong?
Yes, everything went wrong.
Oh, no.
For the sub screenings of a lot of the films.
Damn. What happened?
Okay. So, you guys remember the films Imogen and Julieta?
Yeah.
Those were the other two films that. So, in my opinion, I don't know how many of the films you guys watched that year. There were a lot of good ones, but there was also a lot that were not so great. And so, Imogen, Julieta, those were, and Just a Thief. Those three were like that group of people. Braden Palmer, Carlo Martinez. I think that's his last name. Yeah, Carlo Martinez. Marcus Bratton, they're an incredible trio. They make really good stuff. They very highly produced stuff. And I was like, well, I want Noce to be with that group because I know those are going to be good, you know. So in the sub screening at the sub theater, Julieta was playing before Noce, and for our screening block, those were playing at the sub theater before they were playing at the Pope Joy one. So the sub screening was technically like the first screening, right? And so we're watching Julieta, right? And it gets to the peak of it where it's like the really sad, dramatic part. And we start hearing in the background some music playing. And just we start hearing like some hi-hats, you know. And I was like, okay, well, I've seen the preliminary like screening of this. I know this isn't in there. Did Carlo like add this in there? Ain't nobody precious. And like, what we're like all kind of looking at each other because most of us have already seen it or not most of us, but like the family members of the people who made them haven't seen it. But the UNM students were watching it. We're like, we've seen this. We know that this isn't supposed to be there. So we're like, why is this happening? Why are we hearing this music over it? So we go up to the booth and we're like, dude, the fuck's going on? And they're like, oh, Spotify like started playing this for some reason. They had Spotify open to play like music before the screenings, right? And they were like, Spotify started playing this. We don't know why. So we're like, okay. So they stopped it. They rewound the film a little bit, and so we were like, okay, we're rewatching it. We're all settling back in, and it starts happening again. I start hearing the music again. And we're like, what the fuck is like going on, right? So we went back up and they're like, it started playing again. I'm like, why didn't you close it then? Like, why didn't you close the application the first time? So that ended up being like a whole disaster. I feel so bad for Carlo because it's an incredible film and then it just got ruined by like technical difficulties, right? So I think at some point later on, I don't remember if it was after all that they just restarted again and got the last part done fine. But then we started watching Noce, and everything was fine for a while. But at the diner scene, when he's like talking to the mysterious guy, the screen freezes, and we're like, okay, well, that's not supposed to happen. And the screen stayed frozen for 1.5 minutes. And so just that entire scene was not shown.
Weird.
And, stomping back into the room like, what's going on? Like, why are we having issues? So that whole screening was just like a total disaster. And I found out later the reason for the music was because they had whoever was, I'm not going to name names, but the person in charge of running the music for the Pope Joy screenings, for some reason it connected to the laptop at the sub. And so when they were playing the music, they were trying to play the waiting music for Pope Joy, and it started playing it in the middle of the screening at the sub.
Wow.
So I'm glad you guys saw the Pope Joy screening, because that one went mostly without a hitch. So
Yeah.
that was good. I'm glad that's the one you guys saw.
Yeah, me too.
I have some other questions. Now that we're talking about Noce, I wrote down some other questions.
Excellent.
Also, yeah, I just remember like because I was like in it for like just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
And like genuinely, that whole experience, like it was very like awesome. Like because I've never really been on like any sets before, and so it was just
I felt
cool.
so bad.
For what?
You
made us food. You got us food.
Well, I'm
like,
glad you had a good time.
Yeah.
Because we were stressing because we were pretty far behind, and so like one of the people that we had called there, the guy who was going to act as the dead guy, Paul. His name is Paul.
Mm. Oh yeah, you guys thought that was me. I remember
you. That first night he didn't even act. Like he came over. But we were waiting to do the interior scenes because we had to finish all the big outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
And that took us so long that we ended up not even using him that night. So I felt really bad. And the fact that it was like we made you guys wait for like 8 hours, and then you're there for 30 seconds, and then you're like, all right, bye.
Well,
I was like,
it.
okay. But I'm glad you guys
Yeah.
you had a good time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was going to ask, so one of the things with like, I have been like, we've made some like funny like videos and stuff like that, and we've considered making a Western for so long now.
Oh yeah.
But like actually making a film and like a full length film like that, or like feature length, like how do you balance like the sort of creative like endeavors you have with budget? Because I feel like that's a big thing. It's like you have these insane ideas.
Or how do you raise a budget, or how do you raise money for a film?
Okay, so a couple things. Firstly, I think it's funny that you mentioned Western. I've never DP'd a Western, and I'm going to be DPing a Western here pretty soon. My buddy RJ Torres, his capstone. I don't know, because technically didn't get approval, but he's like, fuck it, I'm just going to make it anyways. But he's also kind of marketing it as his senior thesis film, so I don't know. But I'm going to be DPing that, so that's going to be my first Western. I started watching Clint Eastwood films to try to get inspiration, because I've never done a Western. In terms of excuse me, I'm a little congested, so I'm sorry if my voice kind of falters. I'm not sick, but I'm recovering from huffing a bunch of chemicals last week that I should have been huffing.
That's all right. No, they won't care. In the last episode, Andre sounds like a robot or something, because I think he muted the microphone, and so I had to like try to enhance it in post. It's really funny, honestly. So it's all right.
All right.
So budget is the hardest part for sure. It's kind of, hold on, let me gather my thoughts here so I don't sound dumb. It's important because when you want to make something, you really want to make something, a lot of the times it's going to require a lot of money, especially if it's a really ambitious idea. A lot of the times what I've been told is that if you want to make something, just make it, right? But obviously if it's like a super ambitious thing, you're going to need money. But what I've been told is like, if you just want to make something, if you just want to create something, work with what you have. You want to try to cut down on costs as much as you can. It's like, what actors do I have access to? Who can I ask to work on this? What crew do I have access to? Which one of my buddies is willing to give a weekend to help me make this? What locations? What locations do I have access to? Will my boss let me shoot at, our coffee shop for a couple hours, right? What props do we have? What sort of things, what interesting things do I have that I could use in this, right? So it's a lot of that. It's like if you sometimes the process, if you just want to make something, is to take a look at what you have access to, and create something around that, like kind of walk around that. On the other hand, if you want to raise money to actually make a film, that's where a lot of struggle can come in, because a lot of people like to crowdfund their stuff, right? That's how we funded a portion of Noce. I think we raised around like $1,200-1,300. I don't remember exactly now, but I still put in about $4,000 of my own money.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like I just worked on a short film with one of my professors where they were able to raise some money, but they also had like taken out a loan to make this film. You know, so it's like money is the biggest part, right? And what I've been told, for if you're trying to, you know, pull money together for a feature film, is to pull what you can together for a short film, create a short film kind of proof of concept version of your feature, and then you can start shopping it around to investors, right? But I've never raised more than, you know, $2,000 for a film, so I couldn't tell you. But that's one of the beautiful things about New Mexico, at least the film industry here, is that there's a lot of people that want to create stuff here. They just want to make stuff just to make cool stuff. So there's a lot of people that are willing to give you a weekend to help you make whatever you want to make, or they're willing to act in your film without payment. It's just the biggest thing. If you're going to have people work on your film without being paid, you have to feed them. That is the one thing. If you're not paying people, feed them, and feed them well. Okay. That's the biggest thing. But it's possible to do low budget stuff, and it's like, also, if you just ask politely. We didn't pay for any of the locations that we used for Noce.
Wow.
You know, we shot at, you know, Route 66 Diner. We shot at that LASIK eye surgery place. We didn't pay for a single one of those locations.
That's so nice. Wow.
Just because, I mean, Bella's a kick-ass producer. Fucking love Bella.
Yeah, she's
badass. But she also was able to sort of pull we're students at UNM. We're making our senior thesis film. You know, would we be able to use your location, please? And they'll be like, yeah. So that helps a lot. And also, another thing, they actually used to teach this as a class at UNM until they got in trouble for it. But kind of guerrilla filmmaking is, a lot of the time, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Yeah. So it's like, if I'm not technically supposed to be doing this.
Run into the hospital.
The hospital, I don't know about that. The security might tackle you there. But yeah, I think that's kind of I think those are my thoughts.
It's too bad they don't have that class anymore, because that honestly sounds
that would be
really
pretty
cool.
sick.
And
Hop
very
in some
practical.
barbed wire fences.
Yeah.
The low budget, no budget filmmaker is ultimately has to be more creative than super high budget filmmakers.
Yeah. Gotta make it work.
You have to make it work, yeah. Come up with creative solutions for, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And during the production, did you guys have any major setbacks?
Oh yeah. Nothing but, dude. It's just, when I think back on it now, hold on. I'll have to actually think about it though, because nothing immediately the first thing that immediately comes to mind was there was our first night of shooting, where we were shooting the alleyway scenes. We were shooting the opening scene where like this actually got cut out of the final cut, but you know, in the intro when like the cop comes over and he's like giving it to him, pause, giving him the ultimatum, right? And it's kind of cut back and forth between the hospital and that was actually switching it to be a montage where it's cutting between the two was an idea given to me by my professor, because in the original cut it was just the opening alley scene. And then like a group of like heavily armed EMTs rushes in and like picks him up like cyberpunk trauma team style. That was like the vision for it. And then it was going to play all the hospital scenes, and that was going to be like the opening credits. Mm-hmm. But that ended up just being way too drawn out. So unfortunately, as so cool as they looked, I'll show you guys the pictures later, they got cut. That part got cut. Yeah. But there was a couple actors that we had. One of my buddies, Aaron Swingle, the guy who actually got me into film to begin with when I was like 12, he had driven down from Oklahoma to be a part of this film, because like he's the one who got me into film, and I was like, I'm making my senior film, do you want to be in it? And he's like, fuck yeah. So he came down to be in it. Then he was supposed to be like the armed guard, and then there was going to be 2 EMT type characters. And So there was a guy that I had kind of tangentially knew through online school. Won't say his name. He sucks. I found out because he's an actual EMT. So I was like, oh, what if I just had an actual EMT play the role of an EMT? Like that would make sense, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So but I never met him in person before, right? So during the, we're all getting ready to start shooting. He shows up, and I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm kind of frazzled because I'm running back and forth trying to get things moving. He shows up with like his wife and this other guy who I think is his friend who was also going to play the other EMT. So I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, just hang out for a while. We'll get you guys going, and thanks for showing up. We start getting things going. We're ready for that part, and we go back in. They're not there, and we're like, okay, that's kind of weird. So like we circle the entire. I don't know if I went to Bella or if I went to Liv, the director, and I was like, hey, so-and-so's not here right now. They're supposed to be in this next scene. We circle the entire block, nowhere to be found. I'm calling him. He's not picking up. And we're like, okay, cool. So these two people that were supposed to be our EMTs just like showed up and then ghosted.
Yep.
And so we're like, okay, cool. So now we don't have EMT actors. However, the scene later on in the alleyway when he gets shot from the main antagonist, that car, that BMW, is my buddy Rafi's. And I was like, hey, your car is cool. I want your car in my film. He was like, okay, cool. So him and his buddy Christian had brought the car there, and they were hanging out. They were stoked about it. And they were just like, yeah, just use our car. Let us know if you need anything. And then we were like, so I basically announced, and I was like, hey, so our EMT actors just like left. We don't have them. And then I looked at them and I was like, would you guys be down to like fill that role? And they were like, yeah, sure, fuck it. So they were able to fill the role, and we still got that scene done. But it ended up getting cut anyways, so it was kind of unfortunate. But that was probably like the biggest initial setback. But I would have to think of some other ones. But
Did you ever find out what happened to them? Where did they go?
Nope.
That's weird.
I basically just like hit him up and was like, hey, well, what you did wasn't cool. Like, I hope you're okay. Like, there's no way that, y'all got robbed or something, because the dude is fucking big. He's an EMT. Yeah, he's yoked. So I'm like, all right, well, y'all are probably safe, but it's like, that wasn't cool.
So weird. Yeah, did they ever respond?
Nope.
Wow.
Just full ghost. I was like,
Weird. You got abducted or something?
yeah, maybe. No, that was crazy. But, yeah. The biggest hurdle, I think, during the whole production was just time, because it was such an ambitious project that there was like, you're just constantly fighting against the clock. And that's the same for the film industry too, just as a whole. It's just always time, but really felt it for this one, because it was supposed to be 6 days of shooting, and I think it ended up being like somewhere in the ballpark of 9 days with how much we wanted done. So it was a lot.
Yeah. And you mentioned like a few scenes getting cut and stuff like that, and I was wondering like how much of like the story and like all of that gets changed after all of the footage is shot. Like after everything is shot, how much is it just edited and like, or is there a ton of stuff that ends up getting cut or reshot? Like what's the like post-production stuff like?
So this isn't the case for everything, because there are certainly like shows and movies that stuff changes and you either have to reshoot it or maybe you come up. One of my favorite things is when you're shooting something and you see a shot or a potential for a scene change that would make it better, but you have to justify it in the script, so there's some slight changes. Initially, the one of the script changes that was made was for the partner, Kim. Well, actually, a lot of the roles, when I was writing them out, I was like, these are all kind of gender neutral roles and like race and ethnicity neutral. So, there was some times where I just had to switch like the pronouns after I got people casted. So, that would line up in the script. The murder victim, I think, was originally written as Adriana Cohen. But we're like, okay, well, we actually have someone who's willing to. I basically went into the Dustwave group chat. I was like, hey, I know this is a weird request, but I need somebody to play a dead person in my film. Would anybody be down to help? And Paul was like, I'd be down. I was like, okay, well, now we have to switch this in the script to be Idris Cohen, because if people are practicing 23 pages of constantly mentioning the victim as Adriana Cohen, that's going to fuck him when, it's like, oh, it's actually Idris Cohen.
Yeah, were there any points where people like slipped up and went with Adriana, that type of thing?
No,
okay.
we got it locked down and changed
good.
pretty before they were even like really running lines, but a lot of stuff like that. But as for this film personally, not a whole lot changed after, that first part got cut down, which sucks, but was ultimately better for the film. But for the most part, people kept telling me and by people I mean my professors, because they were like, we want this. The fact that it even got made was like, I was really pushing it, because they wanted films that were 7 to 10 minutes long, which is about 7 to 10 pages. So when I show up with a 26-page script wanting to do a cyberpunk neo-noir crime thriller, they're like, dude, you're way out of your league. Like, what are you doing? So I was really pushing it then. But even after I showed it, my professor was like, you need to cut this down. Like, this needs to be shorter. This needs to be shorter. I'm like, but every scene, as far as at least my perspective at the time, I was like, all of these scenes are necessary. How are you going to do a good crime drama, mystery solving thriller in 7 minutes? Like, it's possible, but I'm not that good of a writer. And I've already fleshed out this whole world, Mm-hmm. So... But even now, people are saying, show it to some other people, kind of in the film industry, and see about what they have to say about cutting it down and just really tightening it up. Because with a film like that, 23 minutes is kind of a weird timing. Because like short films are technically anything 39 minutes or shorter. It doesn't become a feature film until it's 40 minutes or longer. So I've heard. That's what the film festivals often use as their benchmark for categories for short film or feature film. But they don't want 23-minute short films. They want 7 to 10-minute short films, because that's just like snappier. You can get through more of them. 23 minutes is more in the ballpark of like a TV show. So that was something that we were kind of bouncing around the idea of. It was like, what if we shopped this around as like a TV show maybe? I don't know. But does that answer your question? Did I kind of go off on a tangent?
No, that answered my question perfectly.
Okay, good. Yeah, stuff often gets cut, for sure. But not a whole lot got cut from Noce, thankfully. Definitely a lot of changes from the original concept to what it was. So, that's cool. But it's, such is the evolution of a script.
Another thing I was wondering about is like, how do you go about finding people to fill all these roles, whether it's like in the production or actors or any of that stuff?
Networking.
Okay.
It's like I said, it's all about who you know, and it's always good to make a good first impression when you're working with someone for the first time, because if they need that role filled ever again, you're going to be the first person they go to if you're the only person they know for that role. Yeah. So I had really started my real film journey my freshman year of college, or sophomore year of college actually, when I got onto my first ever commercial as a PA. And that kind of put me in with a crowd of people that are kind of up there in the film industry. But after that, it's like, it's just shaking hands with every and making a good impression and having goodwill with everyone that you know.
Yeah.
And finding people for those roles is like, when you it's one of those things where, when you're talking to someone and they say, oh, I do hair and makeup, what do? You're like, I need a hair and makeup person. Would you be down for XYZ? I do this. If you ever need this, here's what I can do for you. So it's a lot of just like networking and, do you know anybody who does XYZ? Do you know anyone who does XYZ? I think we had over 50 people working on Noce between cast and crew.
Wow.
And so it's like, so a lot of those positions, it's like, okay, well, I can obviously, if I need a guy in a hazmat suit to just walk in front of the camera, that can kind of be anyone, So I'm going to pick my boy Bennett, right? But it's like, okay, you can pick certain things here and there. If someone's like oh, I want to work on films. It's like, okay, well, I can have you on as a PA, and you can kind of get a feel for it and see what that's like. But yeah, a lot of it's just like, who do you know, or who do they know, right? It's like the final scene when all the cops are like coming in. I didn't know most of those people just like from my immediate roster, but my buddy Seth, who helped me a lot with the film, he's really into guns, so he knows like a lot of military dudes, right? So I was like, I need buff dudes to be cops in my film and like yell and shit. And they were like, I know a couple people. And then one of my other friends who like was going to the gym a lot, I was like, I need buff dudes to be cops. He was like, I know a couple people, so it's just a lot of that. It's a lot of asking, like, do you know anybody who could do XYZ,
And once you like get a feel for all these different people who you think are interested, how do you organize the shooting days around like so many people's schedules and like make sure it actually happens?
That's the
Sounds terrible.
that's a producer's job, but it's a balancing act for sure. And what a lot of Noce was working around the schedules of the lead actors, right? Because at the time, Tyler, my bestie, my brother, who was playing JC, he was living in Farmington at the time. So a lot of was like, okay, well, we obviously can't shoot the film without the protagonist, right? So it was like a lot of, when can you get off of work? And, and then drive 3 hours down to Albuquerque and then shoot a 12-hour day, it was like a lot of that. So that became a lot of, that. Charnay, the lead actress, she was able to be a little more flexible. She was just like, I just need time ahead of time to request the days off. So it was a lot of like waiting to be like, I know for sure this day or this day. And then from that point, it becomes just reaching out to people and saying, hey, this is kind of like the only day we can shoot, right? So it's like, this is the day we're shooting. I need you for XYZ. Can you do that? And if they say, yeah, I can do that, it's like, perfect. If they say, no, I can't do that, no worries. I understand it's a lot to ask, especially when everyone is still in school, right? Don't worry about it, and then you got to find someone else. Or it's like, yeah, I can do that, but I won't be able to show up until 4 hours into the shoot, and I can only really be there for a couple hours here. And so just a lot of like kind of working around the lead actors, but having to reach out to people individually and kind of, I had like a spreadsheet of like all the people that I needed for this day. And then I'd put like green, they're available; yellow, they might be available, but I won't know until the day of; red, they're not available, I need to find someone else; orange is like, they're available, but only for like a small portion of the, so it's a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Spreadsheet, Excel is your best friend.
And the actual like days that you shot, how long of a period of time was that spread out?
Like the 9 days for Noce?
Yeah, like was it
9 days for
over?
Noce.
Was it like over a month, 2 months?
I think that was over, I want to say over like 3 or 4 months actually.
Wow.
Because we had, I can tell you for sure if you let me glance at my calendar. Because when did we start shooting that? We started shooting in February, yeah. So we did auditions on February 3rd, did our first day of shooting on February the 9th, then the 10th, and then we didn't shoot again until the 5th and the 6th of March. And then we went on spring break. I was helping some other people with their shoots, and then shot on the 25th and 26th, and then, yeah, the 13th of April the next month. And yeah, those were the big days. Yeah.
Okay.
So 3 months, I think was across 3 months. We cut it pretty close.
Okay. That's really cool.
Which was its own kind of struggle, because it was like if we were able to knock out all the days in the first month, that'd be great. But it was a lot of like, this location we can shoot on this day, but that's like the only day. But we can make that work because it's, the beginning of the shoot. And it's funny because as we all kind of got into the workflow and really all kind of got to know each other and started doing a lot better, you can see like a a shift in the quality of the film for certain scenes, because it was like we shot not that the scenes that we shot first were of lesser quality, but you can just kind of feel that there's just a general feeling of just more put together, so yeah, it was across. It would have been nice to bang them all out in 1 week, but that would have been brutal, because we were asking people, hey, can you do unpaid labor for us for 16 hours in cold, miserable conditions, which is not an easy sell. But apparently, I don't know how true this is, and I'm not saying this to inflate my own ego, but apparently some people within the department were like bragging about the fact that they like got onto Noce, which is like,
that's a great
if
sign.
that's true, then that's awesome.
Yeah.
If it was like, hey, do you want to come, be a PA or do XYZ, and then they're going around being like, dude, I got to be on Noce. That's like, holy shit. That's
like the
humbling.
biggest compliment.
Yeah, it was very humbling seeing how many people were willing to help me create this just blindly. Because, the majority of the time when I asked people, that was a very humbling experience, because I would just basically ask these people like, hey, I'm working on this project, can you help me do this? And then they would just be like, yeah. And then they would just do it. They would show up. They have no context of what the film's going to be, what it is. Like, most of them have no idea what the actual film is. But the fact that they like trust me enough to be like, yeah, I'm down to help you, and they're willing to help me, the amount of people that like showed up and put in fucking days of unpaid work into that film was very like, looking at the credits list, how long it was like, wow. This is my community. These are people that like were willing to help me with this, so that was a very cool experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that says a lot about you and like how you're helping other people, I would assume. And like also though, you're right. I think so many people just love like creating stuff and they just want to be a part of it. And like I totally get that. That's always been like a part of like, I just want to make cool stuff,
Yeah.
So
making cool stuff is fun.
Yeah.
I like making cool stuff.
I
do it every now and then.
And since this was your film, how did you what was the process like of like delegating responsibilities to other people? And like at any point did you feel like you were like, because if I was in your role, I would feel like I have to control everything. Did you ever feel like you were losing like creative control of like the project?
So that's a extremely good question, because this is something I kind of thought about recently. I went to a party and somebody knew who I was. That I didn't know them, but they knew who I was. And people were not speaking kindly of me. And so this person was trying to get it. And I'm not an angel. I've done some fucked up shit, for sure. But I was like trying to figure out, like, this person's trying to figure me out because they've never met me. They've only heard these things about me, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're trying to get a gauge of who I am. And towards the end of the night, because I was like, what have you heard about me? And they were like, oh, just things. I'm like, okay, well, if you're being vague like that, it's probably bad things, right? And as we're all like saying our goodbyes and we're about to leave, she was like, I haven't heard good things about you, but I don't think they're true. But one of the things that I had asked was like, well, I kind of pushed a little, and she was like, I've heard you're a control freak. And it's like, I certainly can be, but there's a reason I was quite a control freak on Noce. And people say control freak with a very negative connotation. People don't like control freaks. But when you have a vision and you're paying $4,000 out of your own pocket, you want it to come out how you want it to come out.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was definitely a control freak on it. But as I was able to let go of that a little more once we kind of got in tune with each other, and I was noticing how competent the people I was working with was. And this isn't to inflate my own ego at all, but a lot of what my kind of film school experience was, pretty much up until my senior year, was working with people who just didn't care and were just very like, whatever, kind of haphazard about it, right? So it's like, well, no, I have a desire to create quality. And so it ended up being every project I was carrying, every group project I was carrying. So I kind of had to be a control freak because I was like, well, if I want this to actually be good, something that I'm proud to put my name on, I have to do all the work. So yeah, I'm going to be a control freak because whenever I'm a control freak, that equates to something good. That was kind of the mindset I was going with, right? And that was certainly the case for, I'll say the majority of Noce. I'm not going to lie. I was a bit of a, if I could go back and do things differently, I absolutely would. But at the time, there's a lot of money on the line, a lot of stress. This is the biggest project I've ever done, right? My longest film before that was like 3 or 4 minutes. And just one scene within that film, the interrogation scene, was longer than that, like my longest film to that point, So I was like, okay, this is like a real ass thing, So but anyways, I'm getting a little sidetracked. As I started getting more comfortable with these people and they began demonstrating their competency to way beyond my expectations, then I was able to be like, okay, this isn't something I need to stress about. Like, if I didn't have Bella on that project, and producing was something I was not micromanaging or being a control freak over, or I mean, maybe she has a different perspective on it, but that was so far out of my scope of work that she was just like kick ass, and she was like, this is what I did. And I was like, okay, cool, that's great. So that's something I don't have to worry about. Once you find like a good lighting guy, a good gaffer, for me, it's Noah Eichstadt, my buddy Noah. I don't have to stress about that because it was like he had been, Noah, I think, is the greatest example of this, of being able to kind of let go of being a control freak, at least for me personally, because I had a bunch of different gaffers. The gaffer is the person who determines how the scene should be lit from a technical perspective. Oh, we should run cables here, we should put lights here, this is how we should do this, right? And Noah works in the film industry as a grip. And they're the grunts. They're the one that move all the heavy stands and move all the lights, and they execute what the gaffer says. The gaffer's mostly technical, right? I had some other gaffers on. Like, we went through like 2, 3, maybe even 4 gaffers, actually. We went through 4. But my main 2, they're also industry professionals. And I always had Noah on as a grip, helping them. And so when it got to the last days of shooting when we were at the power plant, none of them were available. And Noah was like, let me gaff. I'll be your gaffer. And I was like kind of hesitant about it because I'm like, he's like a year below me, or actually maybe even 2 years below me. And I'm like, he's a great grip, but I've never seen him do anything with lighting before, right? He's been working under all these other gaffers, but I don't know how this guy works, right? Totally blew it out of the water. I mean, we were setting up 3, and he had people working under him. He had two grips working under him. And I basically told him, I was like, okay, we're setting up 3 different scenes at the same time so that we can just bang it out here, bang it out here, bang it out here. So I said, hey, I'm setting up a scene here. I need the lighting here and here. I'm setting up a scene here. I need lights here and here. And then I'm setting up that last scene. You figure that out. And before I had even finished shooting that first scene, he had portioned off all the equipment we had at our disposal. He had portioned it all off and got all 3 of the scenes set up before I was even done finishing the first scene. The third scene needed more light, so he was waiting for us to finish the other scenes to get it. But we had finished. He was able to work with his team and put together 3 lighting for 3 different scenes before tiny adjustments. Oh, can you move that a little bit? And he got it done. And so that from that point on, I was like, okay, this guy, he can handle lighting. That's not something I need to micromanage or be a control freak over because I can trust him with it. If I say, hey, I want this, he'll be like, okay, and he'll make it happen, So it's a lot of that. It's just finding who you can trust, because being a control freak is not fun, and it's stressful. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of me being a control freak for a while, until I got more comfortable with my crew and realized, okay, I'm not working with idiots. Like, this isn't like the previous couple years here where people don't care. People actually care, and I'm only going to pick the best people. In my heart, I know that these are the best people for this. So I can let go a little bit. And generally, you don't want to be a control freak. But if it's something you're really passionate about, and you want it to be how you want it to be, there's nothing wrong with being a control freak. But it's also important to have other projects. Like, for example, now I have a lot of projects that I've put together where I'm like, I don't really care so much about this, right? Noce was like my baby at the time. So I was like, this needs to be exactly how I want it to be. But now there's a lot of projects that I write where I'm like, I don't really care so much. And it's okay. I'm willing to, experiment with other people on for this role or for this role, and it's a lot less high stakes, I feel like. So that's important too, is to just also have projects that aren't like your entire life and soul, that you're able to be like, yeah, no, just like, whatever.
And so is that how you would say it works with like the industries? Like most directors and people like heavily involved with production find the people that they work the best with, and they stick with them for a lot of other projects that they do? Pretty
much.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about who you know, for sure. I mean, because if I say, hey, I need you to help me with this position for this, the film industry is brutal. It's a brutal industry. It really is. And so if I'm like, hey, I need you for this position, and you kick ass, okay, well, when I have to find another person to fill that position, why wouldn't I go with you? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like the first person that comes to your mind. That's why it's all about networking. It's not like, there's a list for sure, like the union list, right? But a lot of the time, the way the film industry works is very free-flowing. And it's very like, I know a guy who knows a guy. So, sometimes producers will be like, no, you are working with this person is going to be in your department. But a lot of the times it's very just like, okay, I'm a DP. Who do I know that's a really good first AC? Oh, I know this guy and I know this guy. Hey, are you available for the next 3 months? You are? Cool. Hop on board. And then that person goes, okay, I'm going to be a first AC on this. Who do I know that's a good second? Hey, are you available for the next 3 months? You are? Cool. So it's very much kind of like you get to pick who you work with when you're at a certain point, right? Mm-hmm. So it's definitely like, yeah, who you know. And if you're good to work with, yeah, they're just going to pick you, right? I go with a lot of the same people I know. If I have a project, there's 3 people that I'm immediately like, okay, I want you for this, this, and this. So
yeah, I think it's really interesting because it's sort of different from other industries, because like there's a lot of industries where you just hire someone that you know is going to do the job and get it done and just do a task. But with this, you sort of have to hire people that are going to do it in the way you want it to be done, since you are like making like a piece of art. So it has to be particular, and just doing it isn't really gonna, like, you know what I'm saying?
That's not entirely true, because it's like the DP, sure, he might be a control freak over like how he wants the thing to end up. But for the most part, this was something that was very relieving when I got to the actual like real film industry, was your department's just there for a paycheck. So you pretty much just do, like, obviously you want to be passionate about what you do, but you just do what you're supposed to do, right? So it's like, if I'm working on a film and I'm at the camera department, I don't need to give a fuck about what the makeup department is doing. If the makeup looks like shit, that's not my problem. I'm just have to make sure that my camera's working. You never want to be the department that the production is waiting on. But every department has to run itself and has to be its own efficient thing. So if a DP is a control freak, that's fine. The camera department's the only one that has to worry about that, really. Well, actually, no, that's not true. The lighting department would also have to be. But everyone's working, they're there for a paycheck. So it's like, okay, well, if you want to be a control freak about this, that's fine. It's not my project. I'm here to work. I'll do what you need me to do because that's what I'm here to do, and it's not necessarily like who's going to do this in the way I want it done. It's going to be who's going to do this in the best way, and who isn't going to be problematic. So there's not so much of that. You lose a lot of your control over production when you get to the big film industries, because it becomes one huge machine and you're just one part of it, So.
And on those like big productions, is there just one person in charge of hiring everyone, or is it split into departments?
Oh no, it is a whole. It depends on the size of the production, of course, But I mean, even just like there's directors, right, who like work with the actors, but there's also casting directors who are in charge of picking the people that the director gets to see audition, right? That's just for actors. And then there's also the assistant directors who have to wrangle in all the background extras, right, and pick those people, right? So even just within acting, there's probably like 3 or 4 different people that are deciding who's going to be on this film, right? And and like I said, it's kind of depends on the department head, right? If whoever's doing hair and makeup, which it's usually only, if it's not like a huge production, it's usually like 2 or 3 people, right? It's not like anything huge. But of course, if there's a department lead who got brought on by a producer, because that's when it falls on the producer, where it's like, if the producer might be like, okay, well, we have a director and a DP, obviously, but we need hair and makeup. Who am I going to call? They call someone who's a hair and makeup person. Cool, that's not really in their hands anymore. So the hair and makeup person says, hey, I need your help on this for this. Those people come on, and then they talk to the producer to get put onto like the payroll and stuff. So the producer is usually the one handling, not usually, the producer is the one handling all the money side of things, but in terms of actually like hiring people and bringing people on board, that's typically each department has its own way of doing that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that answers my question. Let's see, I have some other questions.
Wait, what? Questions on a podcast? No way.
I would never, Andre.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Keep asking your questions.
So,
These are the questions.
How involved were you in the editing process for Noce?
I was the one that edited it.
Oh, nice.
The Olivia, the director, she did the color grading for it.
Uh-huh.
And because color grading is a part of the post-production process that I'm very weak at. But she is an incredible artist, and so her concept and grasp of like color theory and all the things associated with color are magnitudes above myself. So she did all the color correcting for it, but I'm ultimately the one that cut it all together, did all the VFX, did all the sound design, minus Ian, who did the music, minus the end credit song. That was Thomas Robb. We love Thomas. But Ian did all the music for it, and Ian did a couple little like during the diner scene, how the mysterious guy was talking with the robot voice. Ian is the one that did that. He like synthesized that through FL. So he did a little bit of sound design. He did all the music, but I did pretty much everything else. And a lot of that was ultimate control freak. There was because I was like, I don't know a lot of good editors, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really just.
Yeah, I feel like if it was like my idea for a film, I would definitely want to be pretty involved with the editing, because I feel like editing can completely change the whole vibe.
It does, absolutely, it does.
And the film had some cool like CGI in it, which I was wondering, like, was that like the plan all along, or during the editing process did you? Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I'll make this. Oh God, the corpse voice is coming out. I'll make this clear for you. This isn't me trying to be like, actually, but the difference between compositing and CGI. Mm-hmm. There was no CGI in the film. Okay. CGI is computer-generated images. That's like 3D modeling and like that sort of thing. Compositing is a lot of like creating assets and compositing them into it and making it work within the film. I mean, they can be hand in hand, because if you create CGI, you have to composite it into it. But there was no like computer-generated graphic. Oh, I guess, I mean, Photoshop is generating these things when you tell it to, but it's yeah. But no, the VFX were planned from the start, and you have to plan for the VFX. Another essential position is the VFX supervisor, who's basically the person that's like, okay, how can I make this process as easy as possible for the VFX artist in post, right? So like, for example, having tracking markers on the door, because when he drove up in the car that set that on the side,
it's like moving.
The graphics to be tracked onto the car, you need tracking markers. So there's little black pluses on the door that I was able to use to track the motion of so I can composite something onto that. And I had somebody with a light tube running next to the car to have that glow, because you can't really easily recreate that in the post process. So you have to, these are things that you have to think of ahead of time. If I want this, how can I make this happen as easily as possible in post? Otherwise your VFX are going to look like shit.
Yeah. And this might be sort of like an obvious question, but what are like the main differences, since you've worked on like professional production sets and all that, like the main differences between that and like student-made films like this? And do you prefer like one or the other?
Okay, so as for the actual differences, of course, there's a lot. The biggest thing being budget, of course. I know, I'm not trying to sound like, duh. No, budget changes everything.
Yeah.
Being on a feature film for a month is fantastic. You know why? Because you don't have to buy groceries. You don't have to worry about what you're eating. You show up at 5 a.m. Sure, you're working 12 hours. It is a job, but you show up. You have 6 different options for what you can eat for breakfast. You eat that. A couple hours later, it's lunchtime. 6 different options for what you want to eat. Dinner time. Sometimes they provide dinner, sometimes they don't, depending on the production. Usually they don't. No, it depends. But it's like dinner time. Here's all the food. Okay, you can pick whatever you want. And then the entire time, all the middle parts, there's either food being sent during that time. I forget what it's called, but there's like sometimes catering will put together like these small meals that you can eat in between those, depending on the production. But even between those times, there's crafty, just infinite snacks, just like a whole table of snacks.
Jeez,
so you can,
so fun.
so you don't have to worry about what am I going to cook today? What am I going to eat today? You don't have to worry about cooking or doing any of that, because it's all done for you, essentially, for the entire duration. And you don't have to buy groceries because it's all provided for you, So that's really great. So budget, of course, is like the largest thing. The other thing is organization. The organization, because of the budget, there is a lot that needs to go smoothly in order for budget to not be wasted. Because if you imagine, sure, my day rate might be $300. Every day that I'm here, I get $300. But imagine that times 20 and higher rates for higher people, right? That basically means, sure, my hourly rate might technically be $25 an hour. But when you multiply that by 20 other people, 1 hour on a film set can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Easy, So there's a certain level of organization that needs to happen. And this was actually one of the compliments that I had gotten on Noce from all the people that worked on it, was that it didn't feel like a student film because it was run like a real set. I say real set as if student films can't be real sets, but which obviously isn't the case. But we ran it like a real set. And the only reason I was able to do that was because I was one of the people, I'm not the only person, but I was one of the only people in the program who had actually been doing professional film work before my capstone film. So I had seen a lot of how professionals run sets. So I was like, okay, well, I want to mimic this. And it's honestly, it can be pretty militaristic. Like the film industry and the military, like, they're not super far off, honestly, in the terms of how things are ran. But because of that, and that's part of the reason why people were calling me a control freak, because it was, like I said, if I could go back and do things differently, I definitely would. But
and would you though? I feel like you got the product you wanted, right?
I did, and I learned from it for sure, but I was very stressed the whole time, and I was very militaristic. I ran it like a real set, which is militaristic. And sure, we got it done, and people said they enjoyed being on it, but there was a lot of just aggressive, angry energy that I was putting out that didn't need to be there. And I didn't learn this until a broadcast gig that I had later that I'll come back to that. But that's the biggest thing, is organization. Is a lot of people said, this doesn't feel like a student film. It's like because it's being ran like a real film. And even Seth was saying like that student film was ran better than some short films organized by industry professionals.
Wow.
So it's like organization and money are the two biggest things between that. Oh, and of course the delegation of work. Like I said, when you're on a bigger film, you just worry about your job. You just don't want to be the department that the production is waiting on, because then it's like, oh, we're waiting on the camera department. Now everyone's like, well, camera department, what are we doing, right? But on an indie set, a lot of people have to do multiple roles. So then it becomes like, okay, well, is this good? Is this good? Is this good? When you're on a big feature, it's just kind of like, all right, is this good? And I just have to make sure that I do my job really well. And even if other people start fucking up and fumbling their jobs, that's not my responsibility. I'm getting paid to do this, and I'm kicking ass at this, and I need to focus on this. So those are the three biggest things: money, organization, and delegation of work.
Okay.
As for which I prefer, I mean, indie short films don't pay the bills, but they're a lot more laid back. You know, there's not a whole lot of pressure. You can have a lot more fun with it. If it's like a personal project, it just like feels good to make it. You know, it just feels good to get some friends together on a weekend and make a little short film. Whereas the film industry can be very grueling.
So like a bigger crew and like more people isn't always better.
Not always, but it depends on what you're making. I mean, if you're just making a little 3-minute comedy short with your bud, then yeah, you don't need 30 people. I mean, you remember fitting all those people into my tiny house. That was a lot.
That was.
We definitely could have cut down on crew for that. My house is not very big. But if you're making like a Marvel movie, yeah, you're going to need like 300 people, you know? That's like, you're going to need that many people. Right? So it scales, but you got to have a nice balance of both, for sure. During the dead season, a lot of industry professionals work on indie shorts. That's kind of the time to snatch them with being able to not pay them, because it's like, well, they don't have actual work to do. So,
like, why is that? Like, do you know why the industry just hibernates? Because like
not necessarily.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No sense to me.
I'm sure it depends on where you're at, but at least here in New Mexico, from what I've been told from everybody, and I'm hoping I'm not spreading misinformation, but I'm just telling what I've been told. And all the industry professionals I work with say like, yeah, just goes dead during the winter. And if you've been working in it for the whole year, you have more than enough money to survive through the dead season. But if not, you're kind of fucked. Which is where I ended up, which is why I'm now currently working at Intel as a temp job.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
But that's yeah.
My friend Jack and I went to check out a Mesa del Sol part of campus or whatever, like that building.
Yeah.
And that was the first, because he has a class in there coming up, and that's the first time I've been over there and saw the Netflix studios and all that. And I was wondering, like, how easy is it to like get a job or like an internship, just do something for like the Netflix studios here? Because I was telling Jack, like,
if it was easy, I'd be doing that and not working at Intel. Well, that's another kind of common misconception about how the film industry works is like, yeah, sure, there needs to be people to like run those studios, but generally the film industry doesn't work as like a 9-to-5 job. It's not like, do you work at Netflix? Do you work for Netflix? It's like, no, because that's not how it works. It's like, if Netflix says, hey, we're going to make this show, then you get brought on that way. You're technically an employee. You sign a W-2 or whatever. The way that it works is essentially a film gets created as an LLC, so it's its own business, and everybody gets brought on as an employee, and they work, they get payroll and all that stuff, and then at the end of it, they all technically get fired, and then the LLC disbands. That way, when they get fired, that way they can apply for unemployment benefits in between gigs.
Wow.
Which is made a lot easier if you're in the union, because then you actually have a union rep who's like able to do that process for you. If you're not in the union, that whole shit is a nightmare. It's a total nightmare. But it's not like, yeah, I work for Netflix. I go there, I work there 9 to 5 and I go home. It's more like, oh, Netflix is shooting something right now. Somebody brought me on for this position. I'm going to be working that for 2 weeks, and then I'm gone. And then maybe Paramount is shooting something over here. They need someone for this, and someone brought me on for that. I'll be working with them for 3 weeks, and then I'm done. And then it's a lot of that. So it's not like a traditional 9 to 5 kind of thing. But it's the great thing about the film industry is that it pays. So it's like you can work on a film for 2 weeks, like nonstop for the month, and then after that you have enough money to sustain yourself for the rest of the month. Or you bust your ass working on a union gig for 3 months nonstop, and then you have enough money to survive the rest of the year. You know, so it's like that is kind of it's kind of freelance. It's kind of freelance contractor-y. It's not like consistent, stable employment.
Okay. And as far as like a resume or like something that looks really good or something that could get you put on a set for work, is just like other projects, is that like the biggest thing, like working on other sets? Does that just...
So unfortunately, a resume doesn't matter. That's what kind of sucks. You can have a production resume. I have one that basically lists every film I've ever worked on, but eventually that doesn't matter. Because it's all about who you know.
That's crazy.
And it's like if someone says, hey, I need you to bring on someone as your second AC, and they go, okay, I like this guy, the person's just going to trust them and be like, okay, and then put you on, or call you and say, hey, are you available? So-and-so said you're good at this. Do you want to be on this production? Yeah, cool. They're not going to be like, can I look at your resume? Now that's for the film industry specifically. For media, it's a different thing. If you're doing like media work, in terms of like, you know, if you're going to go work for a media company or do like videography or whatever, people like to see your work. If you have a portfolio of past projects, or if you have a resume that shows you have past experience in like working with studios or whatever, then that helps you. But in terms of working in like feature film industry, it's all about who you know. They're not going to ask to look at your resume because it doesn't matter, because whoever's bringing you on says you're good at your job, and they're going to trust that because they have bigger things to worry about.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It sucks.
So like when you're working on a set, do you always just try to make sure you get to know everyone? And
pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah. And you're going to see a lot of the same faces too. The last 3 features that I worked on, the same medic, the same like on staff medic, same guy. So, you know, he's like obviously the go-to, right? And he's really good at his job. So it's like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, we have to search for someone new. Actually, no, that's a lie. He was on the past 2 films. The first film I ever worked on was a different guy. But, you know, when I go on a set and I see him, his name is Josh. When I see him, I'm like, Josh, we're good. We're taken care of. You know, it's like, it's not a big deal. He's really cool. He's got like this kind of gothic look going on. He always wears like a really big trench coat, a lot of black stuff. You know, he always has like a hood and like covers his face. But he's like the nicest guy ever. And he's like, you guys ever played Resident Evil? You guys know the merchant who like pulls open his trench coat of all of his wares and he's like, what are you buying? That's kind of like, he's got that kind of energy where if I go up and I'm like, my head hurts, can I have some ibuprofen? He'll just be like, he'll be like, there's no more coffee left. Do you have any caffeine pills? He'll be like, you know, he has everything on deck. But everybody knows that they can depend on him. So it's like, sure, he's been on tons of films, but if a producer's like, hey, we need on-set medic, they're not going to be like, well, actually, that might be a little different, because they might be like, well, is this guy qualified to do this work, right?
Yeah, true.
So maybe that's a bad example, but if they're like, hey, we need 4 grips, they're going to go to the key grip and be like, hey, can you bring 4 grips on? You're going to be like, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. And they're going to be like, cool. I trust you, and do that. And then if it becomes problematic, if that person isn't doing their job, then they'll get axed, and then they have to find a new one. But it's a lot of word of mouth, who you know, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
For sure.
That's interesting.
Let's make sure this is still recording.
Okay.
It is. We're good.
That's good.
Ooh, this chair is pretty comfortable.
Yeah, I like it.
What other, so like for the future, what other projects do you have coming up? Or
So as of right now, I don't have any film projects pull up. I worked on, it sucks because after I accepted my job at Intel, I was offered a second AC position for this other thing that I had to decline. And that really sucked because it was offered to me by Alan Horinek, who's like, he's another one of my heroes. I've always wanted to work with him. Like, I love that guy. I've always wanted to work with him. He's always kind of been my hero. And he brought me on to do an indie short film with him. And he was like, that was my first chance to be like, okay, I can really prove myself to him. And he was like, you've exceeded my expectations. I'll definitely bring you on for future stuff. And I was like, yay! And then he was like, hey, can you be on this? And I'm like, no! And he was like, okay. And it sucks because it's like when you don't have a really solid reputation yet, you feel like you have to say yes to everything. Otherwise, they're not going to call you back again, you know? Which can be true to some extent, but also isn't like entirely true. But that's unfortunate. So as of right now, there's no like, feature film projects on the horizon. But that little indie short that I worked on, they're going to try to shop that around to get it turned into a show. So everybody worked super well on that together. So if that gets made into a show and gets funding from investors, there's no point in really changing up the cast and crew who made it, you know? So, that might be an option. But as of right now, I do have a potential media job on the horizon that's going to be hopefully will be paying a lot more than Intel, and it'll actually be something I enjoy doing. So that's on the horizon that, hopefully I can get to do that soon. But as of right now, it's just like kind of personal projects, that sort of thing. But nothing, which was like when you texted me and you were like, oh, I just want to ask you questions about Noce and like where you're at in your career right now. I was like, my career right now? My career right now is lame. So yeah, nothing too crazy for the time being, but hopefully it'll when it picks up again, we'll see, because apparently it picks up kind of late February, early March. So
okay.
We'll see.
That's awesome. And what about that? Did you ever? Because I remember you were telling me about something with, was it like Liberty Walk, like taking photos? With them or something
yeah,
like that?
no, that kind of fizzled out. The guy whose car it is that I took some good pictures for him, but I haven't really spoken to him. So
okay.
I don't really know what he's up to, or what he's done with those pictures. Maybe he sent them.
It's still a crazy connection though.
Yeah,
if you ever
yeah.
wanted to go the automotive.
That's cool. He's trying to establish that connection right now. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. But I got pretty busy, so I wasn't able to like really dedicate as much time to doing that for him. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But you used to or do you still film at the racetrack sometimes, like for those like drift competitions and stuff?
I haven't done that since No Coast, the last like big drift competition they had last year. I haven't been there since that. There was a lot of drama, lot of drama between the drivers and the media. And I kind of got to a point where I was like, this is super cool. It was really cool. I got a lot of really good footage, but it just kind of became like, okay, this is kind of just the same thing over and over. And it's not really like challenging me or engaging me in new ways. And that's not to say that there aren't opportunities for that. You certainly, it is what you make it. But I was like, as of right now, I don't have an interest in doing this because it's not engaging for me. So I kind of stepped away from that. And I was told that from one of my buddies who does still do it, that was probably a good move because there was a lot of back and forth going on at the time. So, but no, I haven't done it for over half a year probably at this point.
Okay.
Maybe something like that. Yeah. It's been a while.
And what would you say, like, do you have any, like, goals right now for, like, what part of, like, the industry you want to focus on?
I would like to, I love cameras. I love working with cameras. So if I'm working in the film industry, I want to be working with cameras. As it stands right now, I would like to become a utility. Like, I want to do utility work. So that I can, because in order to join the union, not only is it a lot of money, but you also have to have a certain amount of days doing that job on a set, which is weird because it's like, okay, well, I'm not in the union. How do I get this position? But I need 100 days within this much time doing this position to join the union for this position. It's kind of ass backwards. So I would like to join utility, but ultimately I have like a lot for where I'm at in life, a lot of second AC days on like paid sets, like paid second AC days. I probably have somewhere around like 20 now, and I think you have to have like 100 within 3 years, I think, if it's non-union sets, or it's like 100 within a year if it's union sets, something like that. There's some weird rules. But it's like, well, I don't want to join the union as a second AC. But also it kind of gets to a point where if you have too many days in a position and you're not in the union, the producers are going to start like people are going to start pushing you to join the union, because the difference between a union and a non-union production is like night and day, because that completely changes how much, if a set has shot 15 days as a non-union set, and then some higher ups at like SAG or something find out, oh, there's a lot of like non-union people working on this who have like hundreds and hundreds of days. They should be in the union, and then they're going to start pushing to have it switched over to a union show. But the moment it switches to a union show, now there's 15 days of back pay, because it's like, oh, you were getting paid $300 before because this is non-union. Well, now you're getting paid $750, which is great for you, but that now means there's 10 days worth of basically doubling every single person's fee, and that might not be in the budget. So it's a whole complicated thing. So I would like to join the union for Local 600, to be utility, or loader, I guess would be a decent place to start. It would be a really good place to start, because I don't want to join the union as a second AC just yet. But that if I'm working in features. But as of right now, as it stands right now, I just want to get a job doing media, like film adjacent related work, like doing media work and like being able to make a living off of it. Basically just want consistent employment in a field I enjoy. That's the primary goal at the moment.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's probably all the questions I have. Do you have any?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't really know much about like unions. Like, so you have to pay like additionally to having the experience.
Oh yeah.
Like what's the price like? Is it?
Depends on the position, but I think somewhere in the ballpark of 10 grand.
And is it kind of like this is my like union license, like you're paying for that, or like what?
As far as I know, it's like I've worked this many days in this position, I'm paying 10 grand to join the union, and then there's monthly fees. You have to pay every month to stay in the union. So it's very expensive. But being in the union means like, okay, well, now you're going to get higher priority for getting put on stuff, because it's not all the time where it's like, oh, this person picks you and you and you for this. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, the producer has to find people, and the way that the producer finds people is by looking at the union list. Okay, all of these people are in the union. First person on the list, call them. You're not available. Okay, next person. And so you get put onto that list.
Okay.
Right? So and when you're getting paid in the union, that's like $75 an hour for second AC work, right? The commercial that I worked on, it was for pilot travel centers. That was 2 days as a B unit second AC. It was a non-union shoot, but it was union pay, and I was getting paid $750 a day. So, $1,500 for 2 days. It's like probably close to like $65 an hour. Imagine that every day for like the length of a feature film. If you're shooting somewhere for 3 months, yeah, it's 3 months nonstop. You're gonna be busting your ass. But you're making $750 a day. that's really, you can live for the rest of the year off of that. That's like what I mean. It's really big money.
Yeah.
And the union, once you're in the union, of course it comes with all the benefits. It's super expensive, but you should hopefully be making enough money to counteract that easily.
Yeah.
And you also get like some of the best health insurance that there is, just like some of the best. And if there's any, like, obviously if there's any violations or anything going on, they're there to be like, hey, that's fucking bad, don't do that. Right? So it is a good thing.
You were also saying like if a lot of people like on one production, like if they're not union but you're saying if they're making a lot of money, like somebody wants them to become part of the union?
I honestly don't know. That I was speaking on that, but I don't have a lot of knowledge on it because the last film that I was on, or it might have been the film before that, they were, Seth, he's not in the union, but he has a lot of days as a first AC and a lot of days as a second AC, and a lot of days as a loader and a lot of days as a utility. He's been in the film industry for probably close to a decade now, if not more than that. So he has a lot of days doing a lot of work, and he had mentioned something about like people are pushing to have him flip to become union, and if that doesn't happen they might like cut him from the production or something. Like but I don't know, it gets it's so complicated, it gets crazy, and I don't know enough about it to speak on it, but that's what I was kind of vaguely told. It was like something along the lines of what I said.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think I kind of briefly explained that the idea is that this is kind of like a time capsule.
Yeah.
So I was wondering like if you have any predictions you want to make for the world in the next year, for yourself in the next year. Yeah.
I think 2025 is going to be a really good year. 2024 was like kind of a rough year, but I think 2025 is going to be a very prosperous year for a lot of people. There's always going to be struggle, right? But I think things are going to start getting better, because it sort of feels like, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it sort of has felt like every year since 2020 has just felt like 2020. Like I don't remember a whole lot of anything from the past 4 years, if I'm being entirely honest. But I think that's going to change. I think things are going to start getting better I want to hope that things are start getting better in 2025. I don't know how like spiritual or superstitious or religious or whatever you guys are, but it is the year of the snake. And snakes are, the year of the snake is supposed to be like wealth and prosperity and reaching your goals if you're creative enough to face challenges. And I don't know, just something in my gut was, because I was not feeling very optimistic by the end of 2024 about how I felt, because I had told Ben, I don't know if I told you, but I had started working, I made this documentary in 2024 that was basically meant to track everything I did that year, and I ended up neglecting it a lot because I didn't have time. But it was like I wrote the intro in January, didn't get to work on it until April, and then didn't get to work on it until November. So it was a lot of just like me going back and like talking about stuff, and it was like honestly not super great of a year. A lot of emotions, a lot of like trying to come to terms with things, and so I wasn't feeling too great by the end of 2024, but something in my gut was saying like 2025 is going to be really good. And I don't know, just something like, before I even knew it was the year of the snake, for some reason over the past week I had been thinking about snakes a lot. I was like, I kind of want to get like a tattoo of a snake or something like that, but I can't get tattoos because the Japanese side of my family is very traditional. So tattoos are no-go in Japan, but I was like, if I could get a tattoo, I'd probably get a snake or something, right? Thinking about snakes a lot for some reason. And then I find out it's the year of the snake, and I'm like, okay, well, that's weird, right? So that tells me something is going on, right? Kind of on a deeper level. So I think it's going to be a good year. I think A lot of people are going to die. That's a given. That happens every year. But I think it's going to be... It's just been nothing but like war and death and famine for the past couple of years. Do you know the war in Ukraine's at like its second or third year now? Like, wow. That's crazy. It doesn't feel like it's been that long because every year feels the same, right? And I don't think that's going to end in 2025. I think there's going to be a lot of crazy, shit that still happens. Just even with, not to be like a downer, but like even just within this first week, there's been like 3 terrorist attacks here in America.
Yeah.
Like a couple shootings and like that's insane, right? And I don't think that's gonna cease, but something tells me it's gonna be better. And I think the economy is gonna get better too. I hope. Please God, let the economy be better. I know that's kind of a lame answer. I don't know. I don't have any specific predictions, but I just feel like 2025 is going to be a better year than 2024, and it might start feeling like its own year again rather than
continuation.
Yeah,
2020
part 4.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of what last year felt like.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Do you guys have any? This podcast is just me yapping.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm sure people watching are gonna enjoy this one much more than the last 15. Like,
it's funny. Like every episode we almost talk about the same stuff like every time because it's just us.
And we're like, what do we talk about?
Yeah.
Give me one specific prediction.
Sean will get a buzz cut.
It's a lame prediction.
I predict at some point during this year Sean will get a buzz cut.
Because I'm going to tie him down and give it to him. Pause.
I think that's my only one. Yeah.
You don't have any larger societal predictions?
Is Bitcoin going to drop? Is it going to keep rising? What's going on?
Oh, that's just going to keep going up, I think.
Me too. It's going to hit $160,000 per Bitcoin by September.
Okay. What's it at right now?
You're saying that with an awful lot of confidence. Is that something you know, or is that a prediction you're making?
It's going to happen.
Oh, okay.
Well, what's it at right now?
It's at like 96,000 or something.
And how fast has it been growing?
It peaked at like 101 or 102 or something, and now it kind of dipped back down.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ended up like buying some, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've like...
This guy's a crypto bro.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about Bitcoin.
Besides that, I think, isn't like GTA 6 supposed to come out?
I don't want to fucking talk about that. I don't know.
I think so. I'm gonna go with that. So
you think GTA 6 is gonna come
out?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Do you think in 2025 people are gonna wake up?
What do you mean?
Just like the consumerist, dopamine stealing driven economy that has become what we are. Do you think people are going to break away from that in 2025, or do you think there's still going to be do you think people are going to wake up, or do you think it's still going to be?
Yeah, I think, definitely a mix. Like, I think a lot of people are at the point where they're realizing like it's so hard to focus on anything because there's just so much like intrusive just like so much social media, for example, is so like intrusive just by nature, I feel like. And so like I know people personally who are like they're just taking like breaks off of it. And I think it's cool, and like it's even inspiring me. Like I've like considered stepping back, and so I do think a lot of people are gonna be like, hold up, there's more to this. I
feel like the mental health crisis has got to reach a point where
people start taking it seriously.
I think like pretty soon in the future, like there's got to be a change in that aspect. I don't really know like what form that would take, but maybe just more like recognition of it, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, we all recognize it. It's just like something has to actually be done about it, though.
Yeah, I feel like recognizing it's probably like the first step, and then like I don't know, like, I feel like all of us
because everybody knows our generation's like fucked in the head. Like everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But it's just like there's not a whole lot being done to actually like fix that.
And do you think there's something that like we ourselves could be doing to help that?
Oh, absolutely. It starts with us. I mean, we have to. There's certainly. Oh God, this is gonna sound so like conservative, which I'm not. And there is, of course, like a certain level of environmental factors that affect everything.
Yeah.
But at some point, you're responsible for your own mental health, right? So you can be like, yeah, and oh God, it's not that easy. I know it's not that easy, but it's like, I get it. You're like fucked in the head and you're depressed and all XYZ, you know, name a mental illness and you have it, sure. But you have to be like willing to seek out the help for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are in need of help who don't know how to look for help. There's a lot of people who are in need of help who know how to look for help but choose to be a victim and choose to kind of just wallow in their own misery when they should not be doing that because that's not helping anybody. You know? There was a very interesting podcast that I was listening to, a better one. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, there was a podcast that I was listening to where they were talking about I didn't mean it. It was a joke.
It's true.
I wish I had your guys'.
Objectively, it's probably true.
They were talking about information, right? And it's like humans inherently are seekers of information. That's how we started. But now there is so much of it constantly, all the time, so much noise that now we are sifters of information. We are gatherers of information, not seekers of it. It used to be we're looking for information. Now there's so much of it constantly creating noise. It's just a cacophony of information that we're now having to cherry pick and find what's most important. And what sucks is that a lot of people have fallen into the trap, because it is a trap set by, you know, people who are intending to profit off of us. They fall into the trap of just immediately falling into the surface level information, right? There is so much more to life. This is so like, oh, this is so deep. I'm 14 and this is deep. This has been said a million times before. But what actually matters in life is not on the surface, right? But we're just constantly bombarded with so much of what is at the surface that it's hard to escape and kind of push past that to see what's actually important. And I think with you saying like social media bad, phone bad, book good, right? That's so annoying. But it's the truth. I mean, social media is a cancer, man. It's terrible. It really is. It has its place for sure. But I quit Instagram 6 months ago.
How's that been?
It's been fucking great. It's awesome. Like it was a struggle for the first 2 months. I'm not even gonna lie about that. But it was like, because you know when you're so dopamine dependent on it, it's like it's bad. But now that once you get past that, you have like no desire to go back to it, really. And it's like eventually I am gonna go back to it because I need to use it for marketing and stuff like that for myself. Yeah. But it's like I'm not using it. Every now and then I just hop on super quick to see if there's any super important DMs where, you know, that I might have missed. Like Kraylub, the DJ, hit me up and was like, hey, can you shoot a show for me? He should have texted me because I'm not on Instagram, but I would have missed that if I hadn't just like checked. But every time I open it, I feel gross. Like it's the most bizarre feeling that I feel like physically ill when I open it, and I'm like trying to get off of it as soon as possible. And that's only a switch that can be made once you realize how much better things are without it. So it's just like, I don't know. It's just we've all fallen into a trap. A lot of us know that it's a trap, but it's such a nice trap. It's a prison with a flat screen TV and a memory foam bed. So it's like we don't want to leave necessarily. You have to really want to leave. And once you leave, it's going to be like, oh, but the outside is cold and wet, and I would rather be in the memory foam flat screen TV prison. But then once you keep moving forward and walking away, then it starts to get warmer and nicer, and you see the greener grass on the other side of the hill, and it's like, oh wow, there's so much more to this that I never really want to go back to that padded room with a flat screen TV. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's such a flowery, artsy, metaphorical way of saying it, but that's just kind of like, I don't know, that's how it feels. And it's, yeah. I will not go any further. No. I will not elaborate further. That is all I will say about it, because every other person my age has also said the things that I have just said. So doesn't need to be reiterated, another million times. But
maybe it does.
I mean, eventually it'll, for people who are looking to push through the noise, they're going to find what they're going to find. They're going to find what they want. The moment you actually start looking for what you want and what you need, it's like, you're going to find it. It's not going to be easy, but nothing that's good in life comes easy, And it was like, even something like, so I use Snapchat pretty frequently. That's like, honestly, one of my main forms of communication. And it's such a dying app. It's so pathetic. It's such a pathetic app. The shit that they're trying to do now, it's like, you can tell they're scraping the bottom of the barrel for their funds now. They're dying hard. And not even like an it's like a slow, painful death. You can tell. But it used to be like, even after I quit Instagram, it was like, I have a bunch of streaks with people, right? That it's like, throughout the day, I'm constantly like, we're just sending each other pictures back and forth. But it's not a conversation. It's just like a picture of our face, right? All day. And I think a part of me felt like, oh, this is necessary, because it keeps me in tune with what's going on with my friends. Even if we're not talking about something, I see a little bit of their life and they see a little bit of my life. So we're still staying connected. So even though I quit Instagram, I was still using Snapchat very frequently for that sort of stuff. And then I started working at Intel, where those are also 12-hour shifts. But for 10 hours of those 12 hours, I can't be on my personal phone because I'm in the fab. There's a bunch of top secret shit in there. So they give you a work phone. You're not even allowed to have your own phone in there. There's no cameras that you can use, like none of that, right? So it's like, okay, well, I can't be on my phone for 10 out of the 12 hours that I'm working, right? And then it's like, when I wake up, I don't have time to be on my phone because I have to eat breakfast and go. I'm there, can't be on my phone for 10 hours out of the 12 hours, then come home, eat dinner, shower, go to bed. That's all that I have time for. If I want to get enough sleep to actually be functional, it's so hard not to fall asleep in that fab because there's so much white noise.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
All of the lights are yellow, and it's just like boring. So it's really hard not to fall asleep. So I have to make sure I get enough sleep because it's hard as it is, right? But once I was doing that, I don't have time to be messaging all these people, right? So what I would do is I would wake up. I've started doing a dopamine detox too, and that's greatly changed things. I can come back to that if you guys want to hear about that later. But I would go to work. I'm in the parking lot. I'd send out all my snap streaks, and then I'd go to work. I'd come back out on break 5 hours later, right? And I would open all the snaps that everyone sent in return. It's literally what I expect. It's just like a picture of their face. After I close all of them, I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, I don't have any desire to continue that. That's not a conversation. That's not anything that really matters. You know what I mean? So then, send snaps before I go to bed or whatever, right? And it's like, so I've even cut down my Snapchat usage from that because it's like kind of tying it back to earlier. It's like, it's information that's unnecessary. It's surface level. Like, I'm not learning anything more about these people or getting a deeper insight on how they think, or I'm not learning anything. This is us just sending pictures of our faces to each other for 12 hours out of the day. That's nothing. That's surface level. I don't need that. So it's like, once you cut out, something like that, and I'm not saying that connection and communication with others isn't important. It is. It absolutely is. But it has to be meaningful.
Yeah.
So it's like, once I realize, okay, well, that's all kind of surface level information that I don't need. You kind of push that to the side. And then it's like, okay, well, I never really used TikTok. Once I quit Instagram, I used it for a little bit. And it was like, okay, there was some stuff in there, but I was already kind of feeling gross about using Instagram again. So I was like, okay, well, this is kind of just, there's nothing of value that I'm gaining from this. So it's like, it's just brain rot and cat memes, which don't get me wrong, I love, right? Brain rot and cat memes, that's the best, right? But it's like, okay, it's fun, it's great, but it's like, when I don't need it. You push that aside, get a little deeper. Well, Instagram is just like models with big asses and like stuff you can't afford. You know, it's like, it's no longer about like what are your friends up to. It's just like you're constantly trying to be sold something, or you're trying to have shit that just like steals your attention away. And so it's like, okay, well, I don't need any of that. And then once you get rid of all of that, you have so much more focus, and you can look, once you've pushed all that to the side, you can actually look at what, not only see what's important, but actually have the mental capacity to focus on it. So I don't know. Is social media bad? That's the gist.
Yeah. And so like, you're like currently doing like a dopamine detox?
Yeah. So I mean, it starts with social media, obviously, getting rid of that. But I was watching a couple very interesting videos that were saying like, how can I word this in a way that makes me sound smart? So when you wake up in the morning, I'm not saying you guys specifically, or actually no, I'll ask you guys. You're laying in bed, right? You have to get up. What wakes you up?
Like
An alarm?
An alarm, right? Do you have an
I
alarm?
guess honestly, not really, but
You just wake up naturally?
if I have school, whatever, sure.
Okay, let's say you have to go to school. I mean, if you could just wake up naturally within your circadian rhythm, that's
totally,
dope.
it is.
That's dope.
Yeah.
But you usually use an alarm, right? Do you have an actual alarm clock? You use your phone, right? So when you're run me through minute by minute. I want to hear this from both of you.
Second by second.
Not second by second, but minute by minute. Your alarm goes off. What do? Let's say you have to go to school.
Okay. What do I do? Honestly, honestly, I feel like I'm not the best because like it's been a minute since I've been like waking up for school and stuff. But
Oh shit, yeah, because y'all are on winter break and stuff.
yeah, exactly. And yeah. So, but what about you?
You can't tell me your routine. You don't have a routine.
I mean, I do, but like I haven't woken up in the morning to an alarm honestly for like over a year, like probably.
Okay.
All your classes are so late.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'll get back to you then. All right.
Well, as a person who had a 8 o'clock class this last semester, basically just the alarm goes off. Basically, it's weird. Like in my brain, like I'm sort of like in this area where I'm like probably 70% asleep and like 30% conscious. So I can sort of keep track of like, I'll probably hit snooze, and so probably twice. Okay. So each snooze is like 10 minutes.
Okay.
So I probably don't actually get out of bed till like 30 to 45 minutes till after the alarm went off. And then once I get up, just eat breakfast, pack my bags, and leave.
Okay. So when you're sleeping and you snooze it twice, after it's snoozed twice, after that second time, you just get up and go. You just get up and go to the kitchen and start making breakfast.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much? Okay, do you leave your phone in your room?
Usually.
Usually? Okay, so you're pretty good about it.
Yeah,
I would take mine.
But during like the summertime or like winter break, I would probably definitely see my phone there and start doing something on it. But like with school, I usually just get going. But
okay, so you see the point I'm getting to, that's good. That means you're a responsible adult. That's good for you. So for you, when you wake up naturally, because you can do that, what do?
I'd say most of the time I grab my phone, and
what do you do on your phone?
I check the notifications, like if there's text or I don't know, something on Instagram. I probably open Instagram. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously that's bad. No, I'm just kidding. But something I learned recently that was like, I feel like everybody knows this. Everybody inherently, like intrinsically knows this, but like fail to understand it. You know, the dopamine system in our brain is ancient. That's an old thing. Early humans had that, and it was wired into us as a survival mechanism. Dopamine is supposed to make you feel good when you do difficult things, because difficult things are what keeps you alive. right? So it's the brain's way of rewarding hard work, right? You feel good when you do a tough thing, and it encourages you to continue doing tough things because that's what keeps you alive, right? So it's a very old system in the brain, but we don't have to do as many hard things anymore. We don't have to go hunt elk for to live, right? We can go to a grocery store. I'm not saying modern lives aren't hard. They are. They're just completely different, right? But we're still wired in the same way that we are or were. And so one of the things that most people, when they wake up, they look at their phone. They use their phone as an alarm, right? Because that's just what makes sense. It's most convenient. But since it's right there, they'll immediately grab it, look at notifications, look at Instagram, do all this thing. And I don't need to say it. Everyone's said it a million times, but Instagram is like designed to just steal your attention and just give you nonstop hits of dopamine, right? And so imagine you wake up, getting out of bed is hard. It is. It's difficult. Nobody wants to get out of bed most of the time, right? You want to stay where it's comfy and warm. But some people can't function until they've had at least all their dopamine, right? They look at their phone, they can't even get out of bed until they've been scrolling through Instagram for 30 minutes so that they can get their little dopamine hit. But that's obviously like really bad because once you have dopamine not only makes you feel good, but it provides you with focus. So when you wake up and the first thing you immediately do is just explode all of your dopamine receptors, it makes it difficult to do anything else or feel satisfaction from anything else for the rest of the day, right? It makes it harder to get out of bed. That's why some people can't get out of bed until they've had their fix, right? And so it's like, what I started doing was like, I don't use my phone until I leave the house, right? So it was like, because I was like, okay, I'm working this job at Intel, I have to be strict. Like I have to have the discipline to like do this job, right? So it'd be like, I wake up, I do still use my phone as an alarm, but I just turn it off and just immediately get up, right? Put on my outfit, get going, start making food or eating food or whatever. And then only right when I'm about to leave, I grab my phone, right? And so immediately that provides you with more focus to get shit done because you're not already drained of all of your focus, essentially, right? But I lost my train of thought. I've already used all my dopamine. The amount of focus that you get from doing something as simple as that is like, it's incredible. On the second day that I did it, I woke up and I started making breakfast and I had an idea for a script. And I wrote out the first like 2 pages of a script within 30 minutes of waking up. I've never had that happen before, So it's just like, wow, okay, this is what has been robbed from me, and for what? It's like if you looked at my statistics from back then, it was probably pretty bad. It was probably like anywhere from like 4 to 8 hours a day on Instagram, and that's like so much fucking time. That's so much time. And that's so much potential focus just robbed away from you. And it sounds so like boomer and obvious, but like imagine how much you can do with that much time put towards something else you actually care about. It's like, sure, looking at brain rot, it's funny and it feels good. You feel good when you look at it, I guess. But it's like, imagine if you spent 4 hours a day looking at cats and brain rot, or if you spent 4 hours a day trying to learn a new skill. I know that's been said a million times, but genuinely, it's like, let's say you wanted to learn how to lockpick. I want to learn how to pick locks. That's a little side thing. Not for nefarious reasons yet, but I want to learn how to pick locks. And it's like, if I spent 2 hours a day practicing lockpicking, I would have that shit mastered like pretty quickly. Yeah. Right? But if you spend that much time just and I would have the focus to actually do that for 2 hours a day, right? But if you spend all that time just like doom scrolling, it's like, fucking for what? What are you getting out of it? Nothing. And it's bad. And it's bad. And I know it's like, everyone has said this a million times. Everyone's heard this a million times. Everybody knows this. But I never understood it until I actually like got to the point where I was like, this is fucking bad. I need to do something about this. And then once I did something about it, it was tough. And then once you get past that, it's like, oh my God, this is great. Not having a dependency on this is like, incredible. And allows me to be more present with like other people. And that's another thing that I've sort of realized is like, and this is no shade on you know, a lot of my friends or like other people, but it's like, you know, if I'm out getting dinner or like lunch with you guys, it's like I want to have lunch with you guys. Like I want us all to be present and be like talking to each other and just like, or even if we're not actively engaged with each other, that's okay. Like boredom is a good thing.
Yeah.
That's another thing is like on the web, the spectrum of emotions, boredom is right next to disgust. So that boredom is like a gross feeling. Nobody likes being bored, right? I'm sure you guys have seen the studies where people would rather be in pain than be bored.
Wow.
They put people in like a super boring room and make them wait for 30 minutes. And the only thing in the room is a button that shocks them when they touch it.
Yeah.
And some people touch it multiple times because being in pain is better than being bored, right? But I would much rather be like present and a little bored, maybe like looking at people watching, doing whatever, than like if you guys were like on your phones, like scrolling through Instagram the whole time. It's like, dude, Instagram's going to be there whenever. If you want to, you know, if you go home and you're bored, Instagram's still going to be there. It's not going anywhere. I'm only here for a couple hours. You know, I feel like we should be like, you know, being with each other rather than that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It's once you get away from it, it's just like, it's really great. And it's not something you can really understand. You know, you can have it yelled at you a million times, but once you actually do it, it's tough. But once you get past that, it's just like, holy shit, this is great. That is all. I will stop right there.
Yeah, I think that's just all facts.
all facts, no printer. All facts, no printer.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, like it has been
Can you
said.
believe people still use fax machines?
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
No,
That's a real thing. People still use fax machines. Sorry, what were you saying?
I know it's been said a million times, but it is genuinely good to hear from you, like personally, you know, and like, yeah, it's like just you saying that right now has made me think again, like, okay, maybe I do need to do it for myself.
Try it. Just try it. I mean, there's no harm in trying it.
Yeah.
It's not going to feel great at first, but it's like, okay, let me tell you this. Let's set a little thing here. What's something you want to do this month? What's a goal you want to hit? What's a thing? Well, because you guys are still in school, so you there's a lot less time to, that even changes things even more, as something I realized, because it's like when 12 hours of your day is dedicated to school, there's only another 12 hours left, right? 8 of those hours should be spent sleeping. I know as a college student, that's not always possible, but that leaves how much time in the day under ideal circumstances? 4 hours, right? 4 hours for you to do what you want to do, and that shouldn't be spent on social media, right? But it's easy, it's there, and it feels good to do it, right? But it puts you behind. So what's something you guys want to do this month?
I know. I want to learn to do a backflip.
You want to learn how to do a backflip?
Yes.
Oh, you can do that easy.
Like that.
Like you in particular. You're pretty athletic, so I know you in particular can probably.
I have faith that I could figure it out. Like and I do really want
Don't
to.
figure it out. Look at the proper tutorials to do so.
Nah, I need to get my hands dirty. That's how it works. Nah, just kidding. But yeah, I do want to do that.
You want to learn how to do a backflip?
Yes.
You think you can do that by the end of the month? Mm-hmm. Okay, well then I'm going to check back in a month.
All right.
So just try it. I'm not even saying cut it out entirely and quit it entirely, but just try not using your phone at all for the first hour after you wake up. Because like most of the time, whatever's on it isn't important enough that it needs to be. Now that's not always the case. You know, sometimes there's some shit that you need to address right away. There was one of these days that I didn't look at my phone for the first hour. My dad had called me because his car broke down and he needed help. And that was like 30 minutes ago. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I should have, like, you know, that's something I should have done. But I wasn't looking at my phone.
Yeah.
Right? So just try it. Just once you wake up, immediately get out of bed. Like, turn it off. Don't look at it for the first hour. Just wake up. Go do what you need to do. Some like life coaches or whatever, they say like 3 things. Just find 3 things. And so if that's brush your teeth, make breakfast, and make your bed, 3 things. So just get up, turn your phone off, don't look at it for the first hour, go do 3 things. And then you're not going to have the desire really to look at it. And that leaves you open to so much more. And so you can start watching tutorials on how to do backflips, but don't get sucked down into the rabbit hole of like, oh, look at all these other YouTube videos, right? So I don't know, try it. Just try that.
Yeah.
And see how much better you feel, or more productive, or more focused you feel. And if it's working, then maybe try cutting down on time spent on whatever.
Yeah.
You know? What about you? End of the month. What's something you want to do by the end of this month?
I think I would like to, I don't know if it's going to be done in a month, maybe it could, but I feel like I'd like to somehow make some money in a way other than just like the job that I currently have.
Okay.
Just like lifeguarding. So like just make some money in some other creative way that is like something I actually want to do.
Okay, but the key word you said there is creative. And creativity comes with focus and with having your dopamine receptors intact. So even if you're not making the money by the end of the month, you can start planning, start thinking, start figuring out things. Just set, genuinely try this. Set 30 minutes or an hour. An hour feels like a long time, but when you get into the flow state, it flies by. Just turn your phone off, put it in another room, set aside an hour, and just sit down and brainstorm. It's going to feel boring. It really is at first, but the best ideas come from boredom, because your mind finally has time to just wander and like fuck off and do other things, right? If you're constantly like, searching for, we're always searching for information, right? The brain is built that way. We're information seekers, right? It's the reason why if you stare at a wall for long enough, you start seeing stuff move, because your brain gets bored and it's looking for information. So it starts making shit up. That's what creativity is. So boredom it sucks, but creativity is a byproduct of boredom, because your mind actually has space, and that's the biggest thing, is space. It has space to wander. So try it if you want to start making money and trying out these creative things. Creativity. Some people say that creativity doesn't come naturally. It does. You just have to be bored enough to be creative, right? So it's like, prisoners are like remarkably creative. I don't know if you've seen some of the shit that they can put together. It's incredible. The ingenuity of prisoners is actually very impressive, because they have nothing but time on their hands and they're bored, and they need to find ways to do these things. So just turn off your phone. The phone's the biggest one. Maybe not your computer. Computer might be your way of documenting or spilling out, but maybe even everything, all electronics. Maybe just get a pen and paper, notepad or something, put it all in a different room, and just be bored for an hour. And the shit that your mind can come up with it's incredible.
Yeah.
So give that a shot, and see what ideas you can come up with by the end of the month, or even if by the end of 2 weeks, and then you can start figuring out, all right, what's the plan? What can I do to start initiating these?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think I'm going to try that.
Good.
Just try it. There's no harm in doing it. We have 12 months out of the year. Well, you don't look at Instagram for a month. What are you losing from that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are you gaining from that, and what are you losing from that? You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's it. I'm not like a life coach, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm so high and mighty, and I'm above everyone who uses their phone. Absolutely not. But it's just like, it's been so impactful for me, and I've felt great from it, that I really want to try to have other people try it. And I'm not saying it's going to work for them, or that that's going to be what works for them, but there's no harm in trying.
Yeah.
I felt like I got to a breaking point. I was kind of like pushed to a point where I was like, okay, this is bad. I need to fix this. Mm-hmm. That's why I did it. And that's what kind of gave me the courage to do it. And that if that's kind of the point you have to get to in order to really put it into practice, that's fine. But if you can get ahead of the curve, then you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is all.
Cool.
I will cease my rambling now.
All right. So by the end of this month, I'll do a backflip right here, and I hope to hear a plan for you to make some money.
All right.
And if you want to do that, just keep the acronym MVB in mind. Minimum Viable Business. It's a business that is basically built around being as cheap and easy to run, while being as profitable as possible. Basically, the amount of money that you put into it has to be much less. The time and money. Hello, give me a sec. Time, money, and effort. Those are the things. The minimum viable business to make money. So the least amount of time, effort, and money put in to get money back.
Okay.
Just think about that. And if that's something you want to start researching, minimum viable business is like the acronym that you could use to start, maybe generating ideas or something like that.
Okay.
So
cool.
I want to see that backflip.
I'll send you a clip.
I will be here for it.
You'll be here.
I'll
Good.
witness it.
Hell yeah.
And I want to see the plan. I want to see the plan.
Okay.
Well, maybe we can do another podcast episode.
Yeah.
A follow-up episode.
Yes, I like that. I
Of
like that.
how the dopamine detox.
That sounds
works.
awesome, actually. Yeah.
All right.
I'll bring the camera too.
Are you down to like start the dopamine detox like literally like tomorrow or today or whatever? Because that's probably what I'll do.
Yeah. And what does that exist? What
Like-
does that?
What does that entail?
Yeah.
Well, we could like I think I will do. I think I will do the waiting at least 1 hour to look at my phone. I think that sounds really good. Yeah.
And it requires a certain level of discipline.
Yeah.
It's not easy, at least at first. But it's like a skill. Once you train it, it's like, okay, this is like, I don't have the desire to, so it's a muscle more like. Try, not looking at your phone for the first hour and seeing what that does. And if that feels good, maybe even try taking it a step further and staying off of social media or cutting it down to like, 30 minutes. I'll do that. Another thing is not using your phone before going to bed. I didn't mention that. I know that's another thing that people say for like sleep reasons, but honestly, it's for the same thing. That's another time that your brain can kind of have to wander. But I personally stop using my phone an hour before bed. Okay. So usually if I'm about to go shower, then I'll just like, phone is done, it's plugged, it's put away. I go and I shower, do my nightly routine, takes about 30 minutes. I get in bed and, 30 minutes to just kind of settle in and fall asleep. So try that. About hour before, an hour after. An hour after you wake up, hour before you go to bed.
Cool.
Just no phone. Okay. No phone. And I think you'll very quickly see how much of the information that it's blasting and throwing out you is irrelevant and not really needed.
Yeah. The thing you said that I've honestly never heard that much before, but makes complete sense about like your brain, like boredom is where creativity comes from. Mm-hmm. And that makes total sense, but I've never thought about that.
Yeah,
and
it's
and when you're constantly like it literally like milliseconds between the next video, like there's no space, like there's no blank screen. It's all just like literally, have you noticed when you swipe up, like it's not like you swipe up and then there's black and then the next thing comes up. It's like you swipe,
it's
and
attached.
the next video is attached.
Ass to head. It's like, no, seriously.
So I get what you're saying. Like, it's so hard to think of for your own when so much is being. And I think maybe that's part of the reason why it's comfortable, because like it's easy for your brain. Like, your brain doesn't
have to think for itself.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, that's a good point.
I think also being on that last feature was helpful for it, because I was in the mountains for 2 weeks and I didn't have service. I had like just enough Wi-Fi to keep my streaks alive, because that's also like irrelevant as fuck, but I like to keep my streaks. I'm gonna give myself a little bit of leniency, all right? I'm gonna keep my snap streaks alive. I've got one that's like 4 years, okay? I'm gonna keep them alive. Okay. But it's like, no, I couldn't use any social media even if I wanted to. So it's like, I don't know. It's just how quickly and easily you can access it. So, yeah.
I'm excited to see how this goes.
Yeah, let's see. What today is January 5th.
Yeah.
January 31st. Oh, I have work on January 31st. Maybe 28th
February.
or February.
Yeah. Let's see.
I can do like February 2nd.
February 2nd. All right. Yeah. Either I'd say February 1st or 2nd. Do you have a preference on this?
What day are
Well, I can't do the 1st. I have work
Oh,
on
you
the
can't?
1st.
Okay. Then 2nd.
Yeah, what day is the 2nd?
Sunday?
Okay, yeah. I think I could if it's around like this, either this same time or sometime before Probably like 12 or no, I'd say just around the same time.
Okay.
I mean, we can iron out the details later. That's not for another 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I still need to hear your minimum viable business plans. Okay. So, well, you still have to figure them out. So
Dude.
5 weeks.
I'm so excited to do a backflip right here.
That'll be
is
sick.
hype.
I'll bring my wide angle lens.
So we do it like ISO speed and flip right into the camera.
Oh yes.
You're gonna. Oof. I would ask how you're gonna go about doing that safely, but that's for you to figure out. You got 5 weeks to do that.
Exactly.
Cool. How long have we been?
I think it's been pretty long. I don't know, but is there anything else either of you wanted to talk about?
Any final thoughts? I think I want to hear you
Good.
guys talk more. I yapped for a lot.
No, good. We
Stop
yapped way
talking.
too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about damn time. So
Yeah.
anything else though on this?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's see. I have like a bunch of notes for Luke Carbonneau because I was pretty sure Luke Carbonneau was going to show up. He's a G. He had like
I don't know who
he's
Luke
a friend
Carbonneau is.
from like high school, and
okay.
I was going to ask him about his like NASA internship and stuff. But
This guy's got a NASA
I know
internship,
he's a big.
and you thought I was the most interesting person to have on? Hello. NASA
I
internship.
just found this meme. I thought it was funny. That's him right there.
Oh, he looks like he would have a NASA internship.
Oh yeah.
Respectfully.
Respectfully.
That's badass. Damn, what the fuck? Now
Yeah.
you're making me feel self-conscious.
It's funny. All right. No, I think I'm all good. So
All
yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
me.
it. It was
Happy
an
to be here.
incredible surprise, and yeah. Oh yeah, there's another video right here if you guys want to watch another podcast. So
I was gonna ask who that guy is. The bald guy.
Oh, that's the NBA commissioner,
Oh,
and that's Bennett.
he's a handsome guy.